Let's get this all scored away here. Okay, once again, I forgot to put in something, but most people know it starts around now. So, hello to everyone. Let's see if we get any more people. Ishmael, hello there. How are you? I bet it's still nice weather down there. Kim James, hello Dave. How are you? How am I doing? I'm actually doing pretty good. I went and saw the doctor today. What I thought would be a routine check was not quite routine, but was pretty close to it. So, close enough that, considering my age, I'm doing okay. Golly. The big news is a great big giant package arrived yesterday. The bad news was it was raining, so the UPS or FedEx truck, I'm not sure which, just left it down by the highway by the mailboxes, which is a mile from our house, in the rain, and put a piece of plastic over it, not enclosing it, but just over it, and then plunked something else on top of it to hold the plastic in place. And that must be a 40-pound package. I think I know what it is. I think it is what this company calls a solar generator. It's a battery box with a lithium battery with solar panels. I think that's what's in there. And we'll find out and see what it is. Of course, set it up, test it, all that sort of thing. Boy, it was heavy. Let's see. Ishmael says it's been a while since he's been away. Welcome back, Ishmael. Imagine by now you're getting quite a bit of experience on the air. From Evan, KC2NQP, B6HDH, good evening, Dave, and all other Augies. Greetings from Alberta, Canada. Stan Brittle says, hello, Dave, N3PRK. Stan. Don Zed says, hi from Minnesota. EA is K6SDW. Hello. Optical Man Jeff is there. Hi, Dave, from Sioux Falls, where we are expecting 8 to 10 inches of snow. It is been raining today. I don't mind rain. You can't shovel rain. But the temperature outside is 33 right now. We've had, let's see, today's rain, and it's raining right now. Today's rain has been 0.16 inches, so it's been raining kind of steadily, drizzly kind of thing. Okay, Central Mississippi, Preston, Bob Taylor. I like the new and slightly off-topic subjects like the lamp. Yeah, I couldn't resist. People have been talking about that lamp for a long time because it was always leaning in the pictures, in the videos, and you'll see several more with it leaning because we're ways ahead on making videos. But I did a video today where I officially replaced that lamp with one that is supposed to put light off to the side. So let's see. Got an LMR 240 coax and Heil audio gear and a toroid there. Okay, first time watching your live. Oh, this is Ryan M. Welcome. Now this, I try to answer questions that come up in the comment column. At first I was trying to answer questions that come to hamradioanswers at gmail.com. I get a lot of those, and I'm backed up on them. But I get so many questions in the chat column, I've just done that. And then what I'm trying to do is a video a day answering a question sent to hamradioanswers at gmail.com. Now, I don't know how many years it's going to take me to catch up, but I think I am pushing back into it now. So also, I get questions sent to askdave@arrl.org, not net, org. Those come straight to me, and I tend to set those aside and put them into a folder to draw from writing the column. Now, I remember one guy sent a entry. Here are the entries so far for this month's drawing. Sent an entry to the drawing and enclosed a letter asking a question. And I thought it was such an interesting question that I actually wrote about it for QST. So you'll see it in there. Okay, my noise floor in 40 is bad. What can I do to bring down the noise floor? Well, a dipole will help rather than a vertical. But use your noise reduction filter. Good evening all from WW4LLL. And let's see. Ryan M. says, first time watching, studying for my extra license. It's really hard. Now, understand, things have changed. My videos are still there. The technician videos you can watch, no problem. But you have to join the ARRL to get past the paywall for the other videos. Now, if you were to buy the amateur extra videos from me, they were $49.99. That's about the price of ARRL membership. So you can go onto the ARRL site. You will get my videos, just the lesson material. All the material begging for money has been taken out and so on. And they're on what's called learn, LEARN, .arrl.org. Okay? And I am no longer selling the videos on the thumb drives. I've had some preliminary conversations with the people from the league saying there is a market for those. I've sold dozens upon dozens of them. And we have not yet come to a conclusion on what to do about that. So in the meantime, I've taken those buttons down. I thought I had taken them down at the beginning of December, but I hadn't. 2 orders snuck through. And finally, I went on PayPal and killed the buttons. So they can't be used anymore, even if you run across one. But I don't know what's going to happen with that particular little problem. Let's see. Paolo Giuseppe Baroni. IU2IEQ. Hello from Milan, Italy. My goodness, it's late over there. It's 1:52, almost 2 o'clock UTC, so it's probably almost 3 in the morning for you. How is the flight training progressing? It is progressing. The airplane is in for annual right now, and it won't be done until Christmas time or something. It's when they're going to get to it. There's not much, I don't think, to do to it. So they'll do that, and then I'll start flight training again in January. It's a lot colder right now. I had the airplane up the end of November on a very cold day, and man, that thing likes to climb in cold weather. We were getting a lot higher climb rate out of that thing in the cold weather than we did in the summertime. And the new instructor, he's a good guy. We're still working on landings. Neither of us has figured out the best way to land that thing. It's a light aircraft. The aircraft itself, without fuel and without me and the instructor, is less than 800 pounds. And so you don't want to fly it into the ground, but you can't pull the throttle back all the way as you go over the end of the runway, or you'll just fall to the ground. So we've got to find some spot in there that works right. Okay, Don DeGidio is mobile and needs to keep comments short. Yes, be careful while driving there. Wilf609 says hello from Sydney, Australia. Ross VK2YIO. and I suspect it's midday over there. Midday tomorrow. Lamp video was the best. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I had fun doing that. I didn't want to take the time to put it in the cycle, so I released it as a special today. Normally I don't do a video on Thursdays because we have the live stream, but I put that video out today. It's not even 5 minutes, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. So is light a wave or a particle? The answer to that is a resounding yes. Let's see, Ishmael, the dipole I have is the MFJ 2010. Good dipole. That's a good one. Hello from Portland, Oregon. I understand you are getting absolutely flooded out there. Good evening from North Carolina. Light acts as a wave or a particle depending on how you measure it. You know how if you take the slits and do the thing with slits and you get light in different places? Well, if you run it through one particle at a time, you see one particle, one photon. You see one hit here and one hit here, and if you continue doing that, you get the same wave effect. It's weird. Do I like the ARRL insurance? I think it's mandatory for clubs to get it. It's real cheap. As far as insuring your own gear, normally your homeowner's policy would be what you would turn to, but there are sometimes limitations on the amount. So if you're worried about that, go ahead and buy the ARRL equipment insurance, and it will protect you against lightning. Well, no, it will allow you to buy new gear after you get lightning. Thomas Bewick says, nice to get you live, Dave. I'm usually working. JR says, hello, first time watching. Good videos. Thank you. My noise reduction doesn't make any sense because I still have the same noise floor on the ICOM 9100. Well, I don't know. There's a noise reduction filter that should remove a lot of that noise. ARRL Life memberships can be broken up into 8 payments or so. For your information, all from N3XKB. I'll break even in 20 years or less. 2:53, almost 3 in the morning in Italy. Okay, and we've got KN6EZE. Says, thanks for all you do. A relative who's getting his ticket lives in an HOA with very little yard. 2-story with 3 large palms in the front. Any recommendations for stealth antennas for HF, VHF, UHF? There are a variety of stealth antennas. You've got the mag loops that you can set out on the back porch and nobody will know what it is. It's just a decoration. You can run thin wire and create some sort of a long wire or loop. Those palm trees are going to move in the wind. Another antenna that I know people claim I have denigrated, I have not, is the DX Commander, which only has a 20-foot across footprint and is black, which makes it hard to see. Another one that you can use, the ARRL has just come out with. The ARRL does not normally do kits, but they've got a kit now for a 40-meter end-fed antenna, so it's going to be about 60 feet long, 66 feet long, and the ballon for the thing, the 49-to-1 ballon, is in pieces in here, and you put it together as a kit. The kit costs less than $100, making it one of the best and cheapest antennas that you can do, but it will take about 60 feet. Putting out black wire is a good thing to do because it really is hard to see. Okay, let's see. Had the same problem, but asked my wife to... now. Oscar Madrigal from Hialeah, Florida. 73 from Brazil. My call is PY5CAP. Your videos are very, Very nice, and the way you speak is good to understand by non-native English speakers. I learned a lot on your channel. Well, thank you very much. Where I learned to do that was on my Mormon mission to the Philippines. There are 54 major dialects in the Philippines. They are so different from each other that linguistically they're separate languages. So we did not learn that. We taught in English. The only common language throughout the Philippines is English. I was there when Marcos declared martial law, and he did it in English. But I had to learn, most of the people don't know very much English. So I had to learn how to explain complex topics very simply and ensure that people understood them. If you ask a Filipino, it's a cultural thing. Do you understand that? Will always say yes. Even if they don't, because they want to please you. So you have to get past that. You have to get past the cultural differences and actually have a good discussion. And that's what I try to do here, too. Southeast Wisconsin. K9ETE says it's 33 degrees there. Still 33 here. Hello from Ohio. Full flaps take off and cold air is like an elevator ride. Have you tried landing in half flaps? Actually, what I've done, this new instructor, I was having a terrible time. When I start my descent, I put in 1-notch flaps. When I turn base, I put in another notch flaps. When I turn final, it's another notch flaps. And I was forever forgetting the second 2 notches. So this new instructor says, forget that. When you start your descent, put in 2 notches of laps, forget about them and land. So, and that works very well. I've landed with 1 flap, 2 flaps, and 3 flaps, 3 notches. Somewhere in one of the books for this thing, there's something that says how many degrees each one is, but it's not a continuous thing. There's notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, and of course notch 0 when it's all out. I am trying to figure out a little switch or something I can put on the flap handle lever that will light up LEDs on the dashboard. 1 light for 1 notch, 2 lights for 2 notches, 3 lights for 3 notches, and a green light for no notches. And I haven't been able to figure out the physical mechanics of how that thing is done. So, if anybody's got any ideas, let me know. I have a friend in the club, our local club, who's quite good at doing little things with pick controllers and stuff. Maybe he can help me there. So yeah, I've landed with just 1 notch of flaps out of 3. With no problem, I might add. It's very easy to land at Montrose Airport, MTJ, KMTJ, because the runway's at least a mile wide and about 50 miles long, and it just, so nice. At where I normally fly out of is AJZ, KAJZ, which is Delta, Colorado. And, it's from a different direction. The runway's not near as wide, nor is it as long, but it is 6,000 feet, almost 6,000 feet long, so it's plenty long. There are a lot of times with the new instructor, I've come in high, and I would normally have just simply gone around. He says, oh, good grief, land. So I don't land right at the end of the runway. I land halfway down it, but I can still do a go-around from there. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, so can I make a 40-meter delta loop and have it 5 feet off the ground? I would not recommend that. I would recommend getting it up 20 feet, something like that. You can do that with poles you can get from your local hardware store and put that up. Okay, Bob Fag says, hi Dave, nice to see you. Going to make a common mode choke with the toroid. Okay. Hey Dave and the group from KC0CCB, Todd Rattel. Don says, agree that lamp video brought a bit of levity. Yes, I gave it a title. I said, saving the, or whatever it was, the leaning lamp of day versus the tyranny of gravity. Anyway, the lamp wasn't going to fall over. It had it hooked in there so it wouldn't fall over. But I can't believe how many comments I got about that thing. So it's now replaced with a standard desk lamp. It cost me all of $8 at Walmart. Okay, and let's see. I have 38 acres of yard here on the farm. I don't need a stealth antenna. I'm a lucky ham, but I'm in a deep valley. Okay, what you want is a dipole that runs parallel to the valley. And get it up reasonably high, 35, 40 feet, and use it on 80 and 40 meters, okay? Because you're going to get that thing going up, and those waves will hug the ground for quite a ways, okay? And most of the signal is going to go up, so you're going to get NVIS. I helped a guy. In our area, we have something called the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, and it is a very steep canyon. And down at the very bottom of it, where the river flows through, there's the entrance to a tunnel, which goes through a lot of granite, comes out on the other side, and provides much of the water for agriculture in the Uncompahgre and Gunnison valleys. And the guy was the keeper of the gate, and he lived in a house down at the bottom there. And I helped him put up an 80-meter dipole that was about 20 feet in the ground, full-length dipole, and he got out on 80 meters like gangbusters. No problem being down at the bottom of that canyon. Okay, let's see. Where's the lamp? I missed the lamp. Oh, the lamp is still around. I'll find another use for it. In most of the videos, in the videos that you will see over the next few days, look at me, and behind me is a tilting lamp that I use to provide light down here on my desk. And it's now gone, and I've put a regular desk lamp here that has a gooseneck out there. So it's all set up and doesn't mind sticking the thing over the side. By the way, ICOM has released a small app to go on your PC called IC 7300 Clock Adjustment. Links to the radio via USB connection, which I have anyway. Oh, that's a very good idea. I will look at that. Okay, thank you for mentioning that, Harry. I'll have to do a video about that. Other than a Yagi, what is the next best antenna in your opinion? Well, Yagis are fine as they go. The so-called hex beam does pretty well. I mean, it's not the same as a 5-element Yagi at 100 feet, but it does pretty good. The standard antenna for height is a Yagi. You can, and some people have done this, if you put up a bunch of verticals, this is harder to do. You can put up a bunch of verticals, you can phase them. And by phasing them, putting a signal in any direction you want. Now, in ham radio, we tend to phase with switches and 90-degree segments of coax. Because if you put a 90-degree section of coax, or you put one full wavelength of coax in your line, it does nothing, right? But if you cut it in half, it's going to phase invert what's there. Well, you feed that to one antenna, and then you feed the regular one to the other. You can put shorter pieces of coax to the other, and you can get any different kind of pattern you want. Now, phased array radars and stuff like that can phase in tiny increments of a degree. And the way they do that is the actual element of the antenna is a phase shifter. They do it at microwave frequencies. You can just put reactive components in there to cause a phase shift. Remember, we've talked about how reactive components have a reactance, which is a magnitude, and then there's a phase angle associated with it. Well, if you put the reactive component in there, it will shift the phase by as much as you want, depending on the reactance and the frequency. And that's how they do the large phased array radars. My first exposure to phased array radars was when I was in the Air Force. My commander and I were very curious about the one in the Panhandle of Florida at Eglin, is that right? We actually took some leave and drove up there just to get a tour. I was blown away. And when I left the Air Force at the end of my 4 years, they like to give departing officers assignments to entice them to stay in. Well, they gave me an assignment to be a contractor liaison with Raytheon in Shemya, Alaska. And I turned that down before he was finished giving me the assignment. I didn't want to go to Shemya. It was a remote for a year. Okay, let me see. Where did I get down here? Magnet on the wire. Hall effect sensors spaced in the right places. Okay. No flap landing is no problem for any light aircraft in decent length runway. The problem is how much engine you put in. If you cut the engine back to idle, which 1,000 RPM is equivalent to idle, it'll idle slower than that, but 1,000 RPM is not going to push that airplane very much. 1,500 RPM is my descent engine, so it's somewhere in between there. You want to come over the threshold with enough momentum that you can come in and in ground effect and then pull the nose up so that you can flare for landing. The problem is if you drop the engine to zero net thrust, which would be about 1,000 RPM, the thing just sinks out of the air like that. So if you do it at 1,500, you're never going to land. So somewhere in there is the right RPM. Because there's no mass, remember your reactance here? We're going to use propulsion, force. Force equals ma. There's not much m. So we got to put a bunch of a in there to get the momentum that we need to come in, come down, flare, and touch down gently. We're still working on that. Okay, let's see. Magnet on the wire. Hall effect, yes. Yeah, that could, a magnet on the wire and just a little coil around it might do it. Although it would almost have to be AC on there. I could put some AC through it. You put little magnetic relays on there, if I can get some. And just have the relay go over when it goes by it. It'd be very interesting. Okay, inverted L or sloper, what is best for a small lot? Well, I like inverted L's myself because you can use an end-fed dipole. All you have to do is get the vertical in the air. You don't have to worry about getting coax to it. Electric tape on the wire and photo gates, that is a possibility too. They worry for your safety because they respect you. Okay, well, that's good. Your description of the Montrose runways is a wee bit exaggerated. Well, maybe, but to me, when I land there, that's what it feels like. Have you been using your big IR and ICOM 7300 much lately? I have not been on the air much lately. I think we need to go and show things about ham radio to the high school kids and give them a chance to get into the hobby. Now, I will tell you what will bring youth to your club. And that is if you have youth already there. Okay? That's about the only way to get youth to come. If they've got other youth they can talk to. The old people are basically, as far as they're concerned, shriveled prunes that are just sitting there. They have nothing in connection with old people. But if there's youth already there, you can get the next youth, the next youth, and the next youth. Also, you have to treat youth separately. I was with a very successful youth group in Boulder for 10 years, and I helped Elmer them. They had weekly activities, and they did all kinds of fun things. I remember one time we took them out to DIA. Well, a lot of people say that doesn't include airplanes. It's Denver International Airport, and we took them into the Air Traffic Control Center there. And then into the radio rooms so they could see the millions of radios that were in there. It was quite a trip for them. We were forever doing fox hunts. We'd have picnics, things like that youth really like. A once a month meeting that's a business meeting, followed by a 5-minute program, doesn't have much attraction for me, let alone a 16-year-old. So, and you've got to approach them differently. I mean, to me, being able to talk on the air, to somebody hundreds of miles away, and the technical sophistication of this is magic. To the average high schooler, it's like, I got a cell phone for that. So you've got to come up with something a little different. The maker end of it is one way you can come in at it. Which is the best brand for UHF vertical antennas? You've got Arrow, Diamond, who else? They all make good antennas. I think I have one antenna from each of them. What about a set of verticals set out as reflector director? You can do that, but then they only go one direction. That's why I'm saying phased array. You can get it to go any direction. My dad watches radios all the time. Yeah. Well, a television is, of course, a radio. Don't some clear channel radio stations change their antenna direction pattern during the night? How is that done? Phased array. Phased array. They might have, a lot of stations have 3 antennas in a row. I know one that has 5. And by changing the phasing on these things, you can redirect the beam just about anywhere. The clear channel stations like to go kind of omnidirectional at night and then more directional toward their daytime audience in the day. And I'm talking about AM stations. The little Starlink antennas are phased array. I believe they are. I don't know that, but just looking at them, I believe they are. I usually come in pretty hot and heavy crosswind, usually better control and easy to go around. My airplane has a huge rudder. My previous flight instructor and I have landed that thing in a 20-knot crosswind with gusts to 28. And I did that with a side slip. I used the pedals to keep the thing lined up with the runway. And then as it starts to go this way, just use the stick to move the airplane so that it doesn't take much to keep it right over the runway. And I could just come right down on the runway that way. It was very nice. The thing you have to remember to do is, because you're definitely not coordinated, it's not a coordinated position. The wheels, the front wheel points where the rudder points. And if the rudder's pointing way to the right, you got your wheels to the right. And if you come down and land, it's going to want to jerk that nose out from under you. So you've got to, as you land, pull that wheel straight. Okay, I am back from our local net, 27 volts AC on my 13 volt DC PM. Yes, something is definitely wrong. Definitely wrong. Okay, how high off the ground should the feed point of an inverted L? Well, the feed point's at the end of an inverted L. It's down near the ground, so it's not very far. You can get up 20 feet, whatever, and then take the thing up higher. I used to fly with my dad in the Philippines. Yeah, I was in the Philippines 71 to 73, so not long after you were. Thanks for your persistence. These videos will still be gold years from now. Thank you. Mobile now, done, back mobile. Life and Death says, I'm pretty sure they are simply paraboloid. They do automatic azimuth and elevation tracking. Well, the problem is I don't think that the new Starlink antennas talk to just one satellite at a time. And those satellites are very low in Earth orbit and kind of whiz overhead. So they're doing something at a very high frequency in the gigabyte range, where they're going up well above your normal dish network and stuff. And remember, the higher the frequency, the smaller the antenna needs to be. And this is something a lot of people have trouble understanding because it is totally, totally counterintuitive. And that is, the higher the frequency, the smaller the antenna needs to be to get the same amount of signal. The same dBm. Okay? That is totally counterintuitive. Most people start out with the concept of capture area. Well, I'm capturing 1 meter squared of capture area, so it doesn't matter the frequency. I'm getting the same amount of signal from an isotropic radiator at 23,000 miles. And that is not the case. And I remember when I encountered that in my master's work, drove me nuts. It's in my Fields and Waves book up there. Still got all my old college textbooks. Can't quite part with them. Almost never refer to them, but I can't quite part with them. So they're on a high shelf. But the point is, I went in after hours and started on, there were blackboards around three walls of the room. This is a classroom. So I started over here and wrote the equations out. And I wrote every equation out. And you know how in books it can sometimes say, it can be shown that. Well, I derived it. I derived everything in that book. And I walked all the way around the room. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not get the lambda out of the denominator. The gain equation for a parabolic dish antenna has lambda, which is wavelength, in the denominator. And which is the same as having frequency in the numerator. Okay? So as the frequency goes up, the gain goes up. This is why a dish antenna is only about 18 inches, whereas the old satellite antennas were huge. It's a difference in frequency. The dish antennas use much higher frequencies, so they use a smaller antenna. It works the same in ham radio. An 80-meter dipole optimally placed. Let's say you have a 100-watt transmitter 50 miles away, whatever. Put up an 80-meter dipole optimally placed to receive the max power from that station. Okay? And you put it down in dBm. Let's say it's minus 67 dBm. Okay? Now replace that with a 40-meter dipole, which is half as long. 100-watt station, everything else the same. That 40-meter signal will be the same number of dBm. Cut it in half, 20 meters, 10 meters, 6 meters, 2 meters. You get the same dBm. That's because as the antenna gets smaller with frequency, if it's still a half-wave dipole, it will capture as much of the signal as a much larger antenna at a much lower frequency. That is, intuitively, it drives me nuts. But I've gone through the equations. I derived every equation in that book about parabolic antenna gain. And there is a lambda, which means wavelength in the diameter. As the wavelength goes down, the gain goes up. It is weird. It's one of the weird things about radio. Has nothing. The gain of a parabolic antenna has nothing to do with capture area. Which drives my brain nuts, but it's true. Okay, yeah, get girls to attend, the boys will show up. That's true, too. It works the other way around as well. Yeah, for example, if you wanted to put, those antennas that the Navy used years ago, many years ago, to communicate with submarines. Some of them were actually buried. They were miles long, and they were at very low frequencies, subaudible frequencies. And they could, because of the carrier frequency, it would take them a half hour or so to send 2 or 3 characters. And so they'd have a code, and they changed the code every hour. And if they got, say, EA, it meant surface and use your satellite dish, we got to talk. Or, FZ would mean next time you're scheduled to surface, we got to talk, or something like that. And that, I believe, has been largely replaced by now. How do you delete memories on the TYT 9800? You probably would be good to do it on a computer. The TYTs, I think, Chirp will help you get into that, and you can just zap the memories in there with that. That's the easiest way to do that. I personally, there's a lot of people who put great store by being able to program in a repeater using the keypad. And there's a very good reason for that. If you're working in an emergency operations center and you've got everything pre-programmed, but something changes and somebody's putting up a mobile repeater just for this emergency, say a flood emergency or something like that, you need to be able to program that into your radio on the fly. You don't have time to find your laptop and do that. And in a lot of training courses for ARES or RACES, they teach you to do that. And to pass the course, you have to be able to demonstrate that you can program a new repeater into your handheld radio. Okay. Now, it's interesting. We call these handhelds, sometimes they're called handy-talkies, sometimes they're called walkie-talkies. But instead of handheld, which would be HH, we say this is an HT, which stands for handy-talkie. Okay, so this is one of my HTs. It's one of my handhelds. Go figure. That's ham radio for you. First, pay the cheerleaders to join the club. Yes, okay. I took typing in high school. I have to admit, of all the classes I took in high school, that is probably the one that has done me the most good. I got up to 70 words a minute. I got up to the point where I was good enough to be moved from a manual Royal typewriter to an IBM Selectric. Ooh, that was a nice typewriter. Wow. This typewriter over here, I have tried touch typing on it, but my fingers are so far gone that I can't do it. I can touch type. I have the so-called Type M keyboard from IBM here because I can't type on a standard keyboard anymore. My fingers keep hitting the wrong keys. On this thing, see, they've got separate little indentations on each key. So I can actually type fairly well on this. Not at night, but during the day when I need to do work. Do you have a recommendation for an antenna for high? Let's see. For an antenna for high power, 500 watts on 2 meters. Yeah, I mean, if you've got 500 watts on 2 meters, you are undoubtedly doing something like meteor burst or moon bounce. For even your normal, if you want to talk to the horizon, your horizon from your roof or something like that, 10 or 15 watts will do it. So the only reason to have that much power in there, the Kenwood and Yaesu and ICOM have been competing with each other on power out. You get like 80 watts out on some of these. Please knock it back to the notch below that, because you're just blasting. And when you blast like that, you might be hitting more than one repeater. So it can create a problem. If you've got 500 watts and you're doing, say, meteor scatter, the thing with meteor scatter is you probably want something fairly omnidirectional, or at least hemispherical, because you don't know where the meteor is going to be. If you're going to do moon bounce, you know exactly where the moon is, but you're going to need a few things. First of all, you're going to need a radio that can do something other than FM. You're not going to do FM, but you're not going to do FM and meteor bounce either. A lot of the antennas you buy for 2 meters are strictly FM. So you can't use them for moon bounce or for meteor scatter. If you're going to do meteor scatter, you're going to do coded stuff, the same type of stuff. JT65, by the way, was invented for moon bounce, and its application to HF was accidental. What's his name? Joe Taylor invented JT9? GT8 for HF, but by then everybody was using JT65 and nobody went to JT8. So then he came out with FT8 and then FT4. Now there are separate modes that you can use for meteor scatter and for moon bounce if you really want to get into it, but you need a single sideband radio on 2 meters or 70 centimeters better. Remember that thing I said about as the antennas get smaller and the frequency goes up. You can do moon bounce on 2 meters, but 70 centimeters is better. 23 centimeters is even better. The thing about moon bounce, there's a lot of things that affect the return signal. You are sending your signal up to be reflected by a globe. The moon's big and round and spherical. Well, you can hit it straight and you'll get a signal straight back. But if you hit it off to the side, there might be a mountain, and the side of the mountain points back at Earth, so you'll get a signal from there. Well, the moon's round, so that means that side of the mountain is a lot further away than your direct signal. And so the two will tend to cancel each other. We call that libration, I think, fading. There are some big stations that do moon bounce, but with using the Joe Taylor modes, you can do moon bounce if you've got a, like an FT991 or something like that. ICOM 7100, I think, does those modes. There's just all kinds of stuff that you can do, but it takes some serious persistence, because the trick is, one, in the antennas. Okay, you need phased array of antennas. One antenna won't do. You need like 4 Yagis stacked, and you've got to get the phasing exactly right on. The next thing you need is a preamp that's right at the antenna. That's because it's just like an LNA, a low noise amplifier for a satellite antenna. Okay, Don DeGidio is where he is going. John Sambrook has a Ciro Mazzoni stealth loop antenna. Seems to work fine sitting on the ground. Should I experiment with raising it 6 to 8 feet? Well, why not? As I understand those Italian antennas, they use terms like baby because they're babies compared to full-size antennas. They're still big antennas. Don't drop it, because the big box on the thing has the capacitor in there, and that capacitor can put out well, it's a lot of capacitance, but those plates in there tend to be slightly soft. And if you drop it, they can go out of position. You can get a short. I had that problem with the MFJ. By the way, I have taken my MFJ loop antenna down, the transmitting loop, because I have run out of room for antennas. I put the new Chameleon receive antenna, which is a very nice antenna, up on the top of the house now. Any thoughts on an inexpensive 2-meter, 70-centimeter Yagi for satellite work? Yes. Go to Arrow or Diamond. They've both got them, I think. And you can buy them. They're usually got the 2-meter antenna goes this way, vertical, and the other antenna is 90 degrees from that, like that. And they're inexpensive. They're easy to put together. And you can work the FM satellites. You will not be able to work the other satellites that require more power and require a single sideband or CW signal, or FT8 in there. Okay. Let's see. I want to thank same amount of energy in a smaller wave. When you're talking about electromagnetic theory, there's a video out by some YouTuber who calls himself Veritasem or something like that. And he came out and says that the power does not travel in the wires. It travels somewhere else. And he talked about the pointing vector. He almost had it right, except that the way he set the thing up, he had current flowing in opposite directions like that. Steady AC current. What you want is a signal traveling the same way down a transmission line. Electromagnetic field theory. Electromagnetic field theory. They're still after me. Walgreens is always demanding my presence. The thing about electromagnetic field theory is that it is a superset of circuit theory. Okay, circuit theory is a very small subset of electromagnetic field theory. EMF, electromagnetic field. EMF is the electromagnetic field theory. And that's what that book up there was telling you is all about. And wow, talk about mind expanding. Okay, the thing is that you've got something moving in the wires. Those are electrons. We always talk about how electronics is a study of electrons. Actually, that's a gross simplification that we use at the technician level. Okay, electromagnetic fields are they're both waves and photons at the same time. Now, when you put energy down a transmission line, the direction and strength of that energy is assigned to a theoretical vector called the pointing vector, P-O-Y-N-T-I-N-G, pointing vector, usually done with a capital P. And if you really study a two-line transmission line, like ladder line, okay, the energy travels not just in the wires, in fact, not much of it in the wires, most of it is in between the wires, but there is some outside the wires. Okay, so it's not just one pointing vector. It kind of is like a fuzzy cloud around the transmission line with the highest intensity in the middle. Now, in coaxial cable, it's the same thing. The energy travels in the dielectric. But the nice thing about coaxial, as long as it has 100% coverage, cheap Radio Shack RG58 doesn't qualify. Okay, but LMR 400 would. A good RG213 would. A good RG8X would. All of the energy is inside that coaxial cable. You don't have any outside of it. That's why you can put coax anywhere you want. Coil up the extra. You cannot do that with ladder line. With ladder line, you need spacers to get it away from anything that can conduct, because some of the energy is traveling outside the line. Okay. Now, how about in circuits? When you go down to, normal utility AC and stuff like that, the great big transmission lines that you see that have three wires, three big things or three collections of wires, the energy, the maximum energy is traveling right straight down through the middle of them. So, if you are a worker on those things and you have to go up while it is energized, the max you can spend there is about an hour a week. Why? You're not touching anything, but you're standing in one heck of an EMP field. And that field can do things to you. That's why no more than an hour. Then you have other workers that go up and continue the work, and you do that sort of thing until you get the work done. So that's why, because there's hundreds of thousands of volts on some of these things. And where you are standing in there, you've got a very strong EMF field. Remember, the EMF fields surround the transmission lines, and the strongest EMF field, the actual pointing vector, is in between them. Now, what about normal circuits? Okay, what about electric blankets? Well, the electromagnetic field generated by an electric blanket is almost too small to measure. First of all, you're only dealing with 60 hertz in the big transmission lines. But the voltage is so much lower. Instead of a 700,000 volt thing, you're talking 120 volts. We use electric blankets here because it gets a kind of cold at night. It's now 34 outside. The temperature's gone up. So that, I think, helps address that, because a lot of people attacked Veridicim, or whatever he is, for doing that wrong. He did do it wrong, but he had the kind of right idea. Now, the impedance of free space is 377 ohms. That's the ratio between the electric field in volts per meter and the magnetic field in amps per meter. Well, to get the impedance of free space, you take the volts per meter divided by the amps per meter. The meters cancel. Okay, so you end up with just the voltage over the current, and the ratio between the two of them in amps and henries is 377 ohms. You can think of, and I've explained this to people who are very, very good physicists. They'll understand this better. An antenna, whatever it is an impedance matching device between the transmission line and free space EMF. Try that on for size. Your transmission line has 50 ohms. You've got an antenna, hopefully it says 50 ohms, but remember, that thing's out there and it's radiating energy, power. But energy is leaving, okay? Power is the rate at which the energy leaves, and it goes into free space. And so there has to be something about the physics of the antenna that allow it to impedance match between your transmission line and free space. Now you can forget everything I said and just go back to ham radio, because it's crazy. Okay. Felipe Lewis, I think you did this last month too. Appreciate your videos. Yes, the terahertz band and antennas are interesting. Next will be quantum entangled keyers. You would need a quite unique temporal perspective, and supercritical information transfers would not follow conventional temporal sequencing. No, it wouldn't. Entangled photons, or entangled particles, Don't have to be photons. Have absolutely nothing to do with common sense. What you do is you get two particles that are right next to each other, and there's a way to get them so they're entangled. So if one flips, the other flips. It flips this way, the other flips. They're entangled. Now you can physically separate those two particles, and they've done this up to multiple miles. Flip one, the other flips. They're connected. They're entangled. And how fast does that information move? Well, that's an interesting question. There are some who say it's faster than the speed of light, other people who say it can't be so. Very well. Okay, so Felipe, thank you for your $100 contribution to chat revenue. It looks like somebody put a $5 in at some point too, and I missed it. See if I can find it. There it is. It's from Bob Darlington, who put $5 in the chat revenue. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. YouTube takes their part, and the rest comes into channel funds. Okay, I just thought about an antenna that had an electronic system to adjust the frequency using telescopic arms. Wouldn't that be able to tune for different frequencies? Yes, absolutely. If we're doing mobile radio, like in your truck or something, the usual thing that does that is called a screwdriver antenna. It's a threaded rod. Okay, and it's attached to a stinger. And you've got a coil down in the bottom to load it. And then you've got a little stepper motor in there that winds that rod. And it's got a nut. The nut is probably several nuts attached to the housing. And so as you turn the rod goes up or it goes down. And that's called a screwdriver antenna. And it's very, very common on for mobile activities. Very common. There are several ways you can do that. You can get the screwdriver antenna, and these are usually sold in parts and pieces. And you can get a little actuator that will make it run up or run down while you watch the SWR. Kind of hard to do when you're mobile. There are things that have memories in them that will remember that this setting goes with this frequency. The problem is, if it's raining that day, it's going to be different. So the highest order of it is it reads the frequency from your radio, screws it to the right place, and then adjusts it back and forth for lowest SWR. So after you key the mic once or twice, it gets itself all ready, and then you can transmit, which I believe is by far the safest way if you're going to do that. But those controllers can cost $600-700. They'll cost more than the screwdriver itself. So yes, absolutely, you can do that. Now, by the way, the Step IR Big IR antenna has got a great big, long 33-foot plastic tube, empty, sealed against rain, open at the bottom. And it's got a copper tape on a roll and a little stepper motor. That's where the step in stepper IR comes from, or step IR. And what the controller over here does is it will move that tape up to match your frequency exactly. If you change bands, it will move the tape up or down. If you change to 12, I think 15 meters might do this. 12 and 10 certainly do this. You can, instead of putting up a quarter wave vertical, excuse me, instead of putting up a quarter wave vertical, you can put up a 3/4 wave vertical. And it'll actually be up higher and radiate better. So there you go. ELF, still thinking of 73 when NORAD goofed, sent out 5 bells in the teletype, and the code of the day in the safe verified actual nuclear attack in progress. So go off the air immediately. Yeah, they blew it. There's been a number where false reports got certain distances. Remember, there's a human in the loop. A lot of people think it's just the president. It is not just the president. It is the president and the Secretary of Defense who must sign off to issue the go codes. So everything goes to where they are and then goes back. And if those people are not available, in the case of the presidency, if the president is incapacitated, it's the vice president. If it's not the vice president, you go down the line of succession. Vice president to Speaker of the House, and then to various cabinet secretaries. Okay, same on the defense side. If the Secretary of Defense is unavailable, you go to various assistant directors. It's all extremely tightly controlled. There is no time that a go code has been issued erroneously. There are, however, times when NORAD screwed up and sent on up a bad signal. One of them was right after, back in the days of BMEWS, the Ballistic Missile Early Warning System. There's 3 radars. One is in Thule in Greenland. And they had a missile attack. Not long after they put that thing in, they had a missile attack. Huge missile attack. Huge launch. Somebody stepped outside of the radar just to check. It was the moon coming up. Their radar was hitting the moon. And the incredible return they got back from that was what made them put out the false report. Needless to say, the software was modified very shortly thereafter. So it does happen, yes. Greetings from Lakewood, Florida. Thank you. As undergrads in the 70s, we had to take 2 semesters of PE. I took modern dance. Most of you guys know why. Very good. Good for you. Love the IBM keyboard to this day. This is a classic. It's a Type M keyboard. Of course, you can't get it anymore, but I worked for IBM, and when I came down here to live, I had a great big giant 19-inch monitor that was about that deep, and it sat right there and came out all the way to the edge, and used this keyboard and an IBM PS2. And then IBM went to laptops, and I asked them what to do with the computer. And they said, well, we really don't want it back. So I took the computer and the monitor, and at that time they were taking them down at Second Chance. They said I could throw them away or give them away. Well, I took this, threw it away, and then pulled it right back out of the trash can. And it's been sitting in the basement, but this computer is a very nice modern computer. I put it together myself. And there is actually a PS2 plug on the back for this. And it took it without a problem. I've never had a problem. Have you ever heard of a flat top antenna? Yes, absolutely. You've seen these. Bob Harbrecht, by the way, says, hello to all Augies. Okay. Some people are retracting messages. You don't have to unless there's something in the message that might be objectionable, like an ad hominem attack, meaning attacking a person, or foul language. Otherwise, just let it go. Let it go. If you tell me I made a mistake, okay, I'll check. I'll look at it. If I made a mistake, I'll say so. If I did not make a mistake, I'll say so. But if you come at me and say, you are, and all of that kind of thing like that, that gets X'd out. There's no room for that on this channel. Let's see, with quantum computing, you really can't have any noise. This is one of the most complicated aspects. People are still studying quantum computing. They're at the level of a common flip-flop, and it's sort of like fusion energy. Hydrogen fusion. It's the energy source of the future and always will be. I know some people say they've achieved a major milestone of getting more energy out of a fuel packet than they put in to explode it. And my response to that is whoopee-doo. When are you going to generate being able to do that continuously and at the same time pull the heat out to run a boiler to run a generator? When you get to that point, let me know. And I'm not sure it's going to happen in my lifetime. Magnetic, all the things they've tried, every time they do something, they discover that the problem is harder than they thought it was. They thought at first that all they had to do was get it to the temperature and pressure at the center of the sun, which is about 150 million degrees and some humongous amount of pressure. So they tried magnetic collapsing and all this. But if you've got to magnetically collapse every fuel pellet, zap it with a laser, get a little heat, press the next fuel pellet, zap it with a laser, and get the heat out, none, absolutely none of the tokamaks, reactors, ignition facilities have made any provision to get the heat out that would be enough to run a generator and provide electricity and do it at less than 2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about what coal plants can do it at. So, what is the best 900 megahertz antenna for local range? Well, there's a couple things you can do. I talked about doing this earlier. I wanted to receive something from airplanes, and now I'm drawing a blank on what it is. It's a signal put out by all airplanes around 900 megahertz and about 1023 megahertz. And I built, and it's right up there, a so-called coaxial antenna. I took a piece of coax and I peeled back the braid on it so that I had exactly the right length, and you can do this on 23 centimeters, because 23, which is the 900 megahertz, 23 centimeters, well, what's a half wave of a 23 centimeter? It's half of 23 centimeters, it's 12.5 centimeters, okay? So you leave a piece of wire out from the center conductor from that, and then you pull the braid back down over the antenna until it's also, you've got a half-wave antenna there. You've got a vertical dipole. Pull that braid down. Now, if you pull it down, it's actually going to be too long. So you got to kind of push it back up, put some electrical tape around it so it's the right length. And what you've created is a vertical dipole that's fed up through the end. It's called a coaxial dipole. And that's what I made for, what is that FAA system? Shows how much I know. Anyway, you can create a coaxial dipole very easily, and there you go. You've got a wonderful vertical antenna. If you've made it out of LMR 400, go push it up on the roof, not a very long line. Pump as much power as you want to through that, and you're fine. Let's see, laser comm relay systems being tested now with NASA, just launched. Oh, I wish I could tell you more. About space laser communications. I wish I could tell you more, but can't. Is that enough of a tease? Now, I'm not going to say anything about it. Okay, tried PVC and old antennas, aluminum. Yeah, let's see. Okay, China uses entangled for symmetric key encryption. Use lasers to verify sync. Okay. Let's see. Gravity doesn't have an opposite. People have been looking for monopoles. You know, every magnet is a dipole. You got a positive and a negative end on the magnet. People have looked for magnetic monopoles for years and never found them. They still presume they exist, but they can't find one. Gravity monopoles, gravity does always seem to be positive. What I don't know is if gravity is reactive in the sense that it's not only got a magnitude but an angle, a phase vector to it. Yeah, I wrote a book, which, by the way, is on my website, my publishing website at mountsnifflespress.com, and that's FFELS. It's called The Berkey Blunder, and it talks about using negative mass emulators to power spacecraft. It's a science fiction book. It's a very light-hearted book. You can enjoy it. You can probably read it in one sitting. But anywhere, they're available on Amazon. Let's see. Here's a guy who's made it over a mountain on airplane bounce, and it will do it. This one wants flat top antenna. I'm trying to find the calculations for making one. You know those old antennas that you've seen by Marconi? Big, long, flat top, very giant radiator that's a single wire. What he did not realize he had was a vertical antenna with a whale of a capacity he had. Okay, which made the thing effectually longer. But you can look at them. I've seen them. A lot of old AM broadcast stations use them. I made it over a mountain using airplane bounce. Okay, very good. And that works. That does work. 2-meter folding dish and 30 watts and a good preamp. Armstrong rotor, a real computer-controlled rotor, and you're on the moon. Yes, it helps for the other side of your conversation to have a so-called superstation. They can help make up for that. Do you still recommend the W6 LVP loop antenna? Yeah, it's a fine receive antenna. All these receive antennas are about the same. I know the W6 LVP is jumping up and shouting in his screen right now. And I know Chameleon is jumping up and shouting in his screen right now. And MFJ is probably going, well, we got there first. But I found no functional difference between the Chameleon and the MFJ antenna. And I have compared the MFJ to the W6 LVP and again found no functional difference. So I have 3 now receive-only antennas. They all work fine. W6 LVP recommends using his with a rotator because you've got that great big null right in the middle. There are all kinds of things that you can do. Let's see. Has anybody tried Battleborn batteries for the station? I don't know. If somebody has, please let us know. Started with shortwave listening around 7 years old. Yeah, me too. So a lot of radio weirdness is what works. Yes. Hi, Dave and Augie's. Greetings from La Palma. Volcano looks to be finally quieting down. Thank God. Oh, John, I've been watching videos about that. That volcano just sliced your island in two. I mean, you've got the people who live south of it, the people who live north of it, and then they've got little houses here and there that the lava went around. I mean, a lot of good those houses are going to do anybody at this point. And then we can get to them by helicopter because you don't want to be walking on that hot lava. But, I'm glad that's quieting down for you. I know the one up in Iceland that was providing that really runny lava that so many people made so many videos of. I understand that has gone dormant too. But these are all going to be, you never know. You never know. Mount St. Helens, when it blew, I was watching on television. It blew sideways instead of up. Surprised an awful lot of people. There was some guy 20 miles away who was taking pictures of it, and it killed him, buried him in rubble. They found him, they got his film from his camera, developed it, and he indeed had pictures of it at various stages that no one else got. And, it acted very unpredictably. Okay, then there is the positron perspective. For every particle, there's an antiparticle. And when the two particles combine, they annihilate each other and release energy. It is also true that according to quantum mechanics, there's no such thing as vacant space. You take a meter out in the middle of nowhere in the galaxy, and it's full of little spots that are just nothing there, but then suddenly, poof, a positron and an electron pop into existence, and then poof, annihilate each other. That's a little far-fetched, isn't it? That's kind of mind expanding. Space is not empty. Now, the big question in the galaxy is, why is there so much more matter? I mean, by many orders of magnitude, so much more matter than antimatter. And nobody has solved that problem yet. Yes, imaginary, well, there's lots of imaginary things out there. It turns out that imaginary numbers that don't make any sense unless you've developed an intuition for them are absolutely required to explain nature. Can't explain nature with ordinary numbers. Glad the volcano's starting to slow down. Yes, I second that. What other forces have you thought about? Oh, there's many. I remember a beautiful line from, the first Star Trek movie, where they had Voyager, with Voyager, that some civilization had captured it, and it was finding its way back to Earth. And the people in the Enterprise were trying to figure out what this thing was doing. And somebody said, well, it's emitting electromagnetic waves. And Scotty turned to him and said, how quaint. Okay, very good. I don't know. That's all we know about today. The gravity being, there's no theory yet that's a theory of everything. You've got quantum mechanics off doing its thing. You've got general relativity off doing its thing. Gravity, is it a particle or is it a wave? What is it? Not much known about gravitational, but gravity behaves locally as a field. Gravitational field. Is there gravity? Yeah. Drop this bottle cap. Hits the ground. Okay. It feels like a field. But if you look at general relativity, gravitation is simply a manifestation of a warping in space-time. Now, I'm not sure that's terribly practical, but there it is. Okay, China used entangled part. Yes, it did. Entanglement is instant but can't be used to transmit information. If you look at the wavefront in a waveguide, the wavefront in a waveguide always travels faster than the speed of light. But if you run the equations for energy, it's always lower than the speed of light. I could talk about China forever. They've tried, and they've been very vocal about this from the very beginning. I remember, I'm old enough to remember, the opening, quote unquote, of China to Nixon. And Joe and Lai had some ideas that were very good about using the better parts of capitalism and so on. And I remember back when Boeing, as part of this opening, contracted with a company in China to build parts of the fuselage for the 747. Well, the Chinese said, we'd be happy to do that at a very low price, as long as you teach us how to build wings. And I says, I see what's going on here. Now they build their own aircraft. Okay. They're doing everything they can to suck as much technology from the West as they can. They're very loosey-goosey with their intellectual property. A lot of things going on. But they are kind of at the point where they really don't need us anymore. And which is the biggest market? 1.2 billion people selling stuff to 350 million people? Or 1.2 billion people selling their stuff to themselves? You figured out. That's what's happening. We had to take the chips F-16 and so on because Chinese made chips. That was a real issue. There are IBM, for example, was required to keep a chip line open in Manassas, Virginia, because the military wanted an American procurement side. And a lot of the more advanced chips are actually made in America. Intel has been building chip foundries. Every so often they build one in America. And now we've got ourselves in this chip bind, not because China's trying to do something to us, but simply because the supply chain has fallen apart. Okay. Like I went down yesterday to get some 15W50 synthetic motor oil, Mobil 1 stuff, for the airplane. And they didn't have it. Big empty space on the shelf. So now I'm going to be spending the next month or so trying to find this oil. The supply chain thing has hit a lot of us. I know I've had to kind of, do a Rube Goldberg to get things work. Okay, let's see. Dave, how's your health going? God bless you and your family. Cheers from Dennis Peak. Health's going pretty well. I went up and saw the nephrologist for the kidney issues. Let's see, they call it proteinuria, which means there's protein in my urine that shouldn't be there. And it's still at early stages, and they're changing some of my medication. I have to cut my salt use back to basically zero. And I have to take some special medications and stuff. But they didn't do a biopsy or anything like that. I thought I was feeling great as far as oxygen is concerned. I use it at night because I have sleep apnea. I use it at night. During the day, I don't. Well, I did the test today down at the doctor's office on oxygen use, and I figured I'd fly through the thing because I really have been feeling better. And I flunked the test. So the doctor told me, he says, when you're sitting at your desk, don't bother with the oxygen. But if you're going to do anything strenuous, put it on. So I'm 70 years old. I've got to have a few things going wrong. So that's my health. I am fine, and I have no plans to back off from the video every day because I've got a fantastic assistant. Now, he was approached by people at school who told him that his name was being had for evil on the web because people were saying Callum couldn't put together Callum's antenna. Well, Callum's my assistant. And then there's this other Callum in the UK who makes the antenna. And we've been through all of that. Let's just say that All publicity is good publicity because my earnings on this channel are up sharply because of the hoofah between it. So fine, let them say what they want. Because what happens, I remember when I was in the Philippines once, we thought it would be nice to leave a little half-page flyer at the houses we attracted to because so few people were home. So I went down to the local newspaper and wrote a little 2 paragraphs on a typewriter. Remember, I could type. And I says, can you print this? And they says, sure. And then they went and published it in their paper, which I thought was interesting because I had my little handouts I could hand out. It was just a very, very short thing telling basically 1 or 2 rudiments of Mormonism and where the church was located and what time the meetings were. Well, those flyers made their way into the hands of the opposition. And, oh my goodness, preachers of all stripes started preaching against us and going to hell and all this kind of thing. It was wonderful because everywhere we tracted, people said, come in. I want to know what you really teach. It's Bruce. Any publicity, it's good publicity. So anyway, whatever. The M1 is the keyboard here. Just got a copy of the ARRL handbook. It's always nice to see Dave live doing his things. Well, good. That ARRL handbook is a wonderful reference book. If you want to try and read it, you'll get a master's course in electronics. During the war, World War II, the ARRL published a special war edition of the ARRL handbook that made its way around the world to the Allies. And that is what people in England and all over the place, all the Allies were using the handbook to make their radios. Because all the equations were there, everything was there. There were all kinds of sample circuits, all kinds of things that you could do in that book. And that book is still, today, a goldmine of information. Although they haven't yet put in the NFED-ZEP properly. Let's see, where are we here? Gotta go. Yeah, it is time to go. Okay, let's do this vacuum energy. Yeah, space is full of fields, vacuum energy. Can you cancel the magnetic portion of a radio wave and just transmit the electrical portion? You can try, but as soon as it gets out into free space, the impedance of free space is 377 ohms. So if you have an electric field, the magnetic comes along for the ride. Okay, could an HOA-restricted Persian use a ground-mounted hamstick with an extensive radial bed? Yes, you can. You don't need to make those radials very long, and you don't need 1,000,000 of them. 16 or so will do. Forget antimatter, explain dark matter not right now, please. We'll do another video. The thing about dark matter is now there's a lot of controversy in the astronomical community as to whether there ever was any dark matter. Because they've been playing with equations and poof, dark matter disappears. And nobody's ever been able to detect it. So, field maps, yeah, it's all over the place. And gravity is a really weird thing. The Earth's magnetic field is not uniform, which drives satellite operators absolutely nuts. And it is impossible to predict the orbit exactly for more than about 2 weeks. And then you've got to keep predicting it. Shortwave computer program that automatically scans. Okay, I think I got that question from you before, and I'm going to answer that in a video. With gravitational too, in fact. Yeah, that's right. We know the waves exist. I think they're intending to put in a third. Questions quality B grade, cells sold as A grade. Yeah, Hope I get the real deal. Gravity is the effect of... Yes, it is supposedly an effect of the warping of space-time. However, locally, it behaves as a field. So, yeah, the 5G Huawei problem. 5G is not a Chinese invention. Learn Chinese and avoid the rush. My assistant is learning Chinese. China will invade Taiwan in the next 3 years. I'm not sure they'll last that long. CPAP machines helps me. Yes, helps me a great deal. If I take a nap, and I want a serious nap in the middle of the day, I'll put it on. The different mass densities on the planet makes gravity different in different areas. Oh, I could go into the problem with geodesy, which is the measurement of the Earth, because of the gravitational anomalies and what it does to geodesy. Okay, let's see. Better than Trevor? Yes, he's a better editor. You're here on Mrs. Dash. Let's see it. Daryl, these companies have trying to do their prototypes. Trolls make the web go round. Yeah, there's too many of them. Okay, we're getting almost down to the end. Holy crap, it took me 3 times to get the Mormons to stop visiting my house. Yeah, the strings attached are that the missionaries bring it to your door. It is very possible, if you want to see the book, have the missionaries bring it to your door and simply tell them politely, thank you for the book. I don't need anything else. Please go away and don't come back. And they'll do that, okay? I've been a missionary myself. I know how that works. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Satellite operator was already nuts. You do not look 70. Well, yeah, I feel it. Let's see. Yeah, it's starting to get the medical problems and stuff like that. Okay, we got to the bottom of the list. We ended up with $140.99 in chat revenue. Thank you very much. That goes into channel funds after YouTube takes its chunk. And now the 3 ways to support the channel are, besides making your way through the YouTube ads. By the way, I never allow anymore mid-roll ads for the videos. There should not be any mid-roll ads in the videos. If you find one that has it, let me know and I'll unclick the mid-roll ads, because mid-roll ads drive me nuts, and so I'm sure they drive you nuts. It's fine to have a video at the beginning and a video at the end. Yeah, I understand that, but don't stick it right in the middle. Let's see. All right, so we are at the end. We have 179 concurrent viewers. We maxed out at 190. We've had 1,880 people stop by with an average view time of 7.5 minutes. And we got 104 likes out of this. So thank you very much. And Felipe Lewis is giving us 6 stars. Guy, you misunderstand Mormons if you're saying that. Optical Man Jeff, $10. Just about forgot enjoying the stream too much. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so there we go. And now we're going to have a live stream next week, which is the 16th. We will not have one on the 23rd. Loretta and I will be out that night. We won't be here that night. The 30th, we will have a live stream, and that is where we will give away number 5, which is an antenna. Let me show you giveaway number 6, since you're hanging around here. It's this little cute shortwave radio and AM and FM radio that's got the crank angle, so you can crank it. And it's got a little flashlight built in. It's got a little solar panel on the top. So this is one of those emergency radio kinds of things. I reviewed it a while back. And so we'll make this giveaway number 6. So in the meantime, to enter the giveaway, you still got time to do it. Send a postcard or your QSL card or a single page in an envelope to Dave Casler, KE0OG, at P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado, 81432. On the card or in the envelope, put your name and call sign. And this is mostly for stateside people. Put your name and call sign, the address you want it shipped to if you win, and your phone number that I can call if you have any questions. Please don't put that at the bottom of a card because the post office tends to print over it. And if you're overseas and you want to enter, you have to agree in advance that if you win, you will pay the shipping, because the shipping to overseas can be ridiculous. So that's why I'm saying American only. So if you're overseas and want to enter, that's fine. If you want to include anything in the letter, that's fine. I open every envelope. Like I said, one guy sent a question on a separate sheet of paper. Or anything like that, that's fine. I do open and inspect every envelope. Thank you all very much. I love you guys. 73.